Hi students, this is a look at Monte Alban from the air, of course, and you see the center of the city with ritual buildings, observatory, marketing and meeting space, royal residences, tombs, and so forth. And then encircling the top of the hilltop, you can see that the terraced sides of it held an enormous residential section of the city. As we look at the hilltop itself, with an artist reconstruction, we see that the site towers over the Valley of Oaxaca, which in ancient times and in modern is an extremely productive agricultural zone. They have a relatively high water table, and so irrigation, drainage, and so forth work very well for them, plus a very nice climate. The ancient city also dominated the view to the north, east and west for anyone coming in and out of the valley, so it consolidated their ability to control everything. Today, as you stand at the hilltop, you can see something very similar going on, that the urban environment is clinging to the rocky hillsides, and the lower flatter area has been still in important economic use. With this particular view, you can see that enormous ritual construction, platform pyramids with enclosed private enclosures in the front, sunken courts and so forth, line each side of the artificially flattened top of this hill, and more or less the height and spacing of the platform pyramids mirrors the natural mountain height and spacing from the distance. And this is partially how the site could work as an observatory as well. Really fantastically investigated and documented for this particular culture was the construction of very high status subterranean tombs. You walk down them just like steps into a house. The doors are small, but it opens up into a room nicely furnished and with murals on the side, as if it is an underground residence. This is a very interesting type of tomb, and not like those constructed by the Maya, nor inside these tombs, aside from the beautiful red-green murals on a cream-colored wall on the outside, or to the base of the wall, you can see a series of niches, and the urns inside the niches are some of the most fantastically interesting things from anywhere in Mesoamerica. They're generally a grayish to brownish clay, usually with very little paint, maybe a little white, a little red. This is not a culture that painted things in a huge number of colors. And the urns are called urns because while you can see these figures on the exterior that are usually humans dressed in ritual outfits, when you turn the urn around in the back, it's a vertical vase-shaped container. The walls are also frequently built to look like the exteriors of buildings, and so this is a very special below ground area. Of these urns, the most famous of them is probably the Scribe of Quilapan, which on this particular young biomale's chest you can see inscriptions, which is where we get some of the knowledge that this was a person who in life was a scribe, someone who could write, and you can also see some of that information written into the headdress. There are a lot of images in this particular environment as well of supernatural entities that we see fairly frequently. Now, while these might be humans in masks, they may also reflect their concept of the supernaturals. Very, very commonly here is the individual with just an upper jaw, not a lower jaw, and a tongue sticking out that's bifurcated like a snake, but not with the pointy tips. Generally with these, if they are supernaturals, you're really going to see those very, very fancy eye ornaments. And another that we can see that's going to show up again for the Maya and also in Teotihuacan is the so-called old god. and he's a bio male. Definitely looks old. You can see the very saggy chest muscles and skin, wrinkles around the face, teeth that seem to have some of them missing, and generally just a very serene, older appearance. This does appear to be someone who took the form of someone that. As we wrap up a look at the Zapotec urns, we have a couple of pieces here that have some red pigmentation over the surface. Again, you can see examples of the extremely fancy, very, very large headdresses and other garments that people wore in public environments. These are probably a combination of leather, paper, and wood. Um, Feathers from some of the cultures, tassels, and so forth. Again, remember the crowd would have to be able to see them from some distance, so they definitely were doing their job to stand out efficiently. The urns, again, every single one that you're looking at, if you turn it around, is a container in the back. There are some of these that are bio-female, and one of the most fantastic things about these is that they are frequently dressed as regular people. These may be images of the person in life or family members or the ritual participants for mourning or for sending the person along. We really don't know exactly what that type of event would exactly be, but those are just some ideas. Uh, in taking a look at traditional dress still worn in the region, the very specific type of braiding hair with extra pieces of yarn and then coiling it around the head, the huipil, which is a cape-like garment with a central hole for the head with fancy edges and so forth. We still see that is still worn in the area today and was worn 2,000 years ago, which is pretty awesome. We also see that tooth filing and ear piercing and the very heavy, chunky beaded collars is also something that was commonly worn in the past. There are a couple more items I'd like you to take a quick look at because I really enjoy looking at them as well. Firstly, there are quite a few of these urns that are in the shape of animals, perhaps humans in animal mass, perhaps supernaturals that look part human, part animal. Most notably of these are bats. Bats appear really commonly in Mesoamerican art. The Maya art is full of them. And these in urn shape, like the dark gray or the lighter tan color one here, because of the position and shape of the ears, the upturned nose, the small leaf-like items at the side of the mouth, we can recognize these. Of course, bats come out at night, and therefore they would be part of the population for the underworld or for the periods of time where the sun is not out. Cats are also there. These are probably not jaguars, but probably puma type animals, and they are frequently very large. They wear garments, skin color, paint, scarves, that sort of thing, and are depicted as accompaniments or attendants for some of the royal tombs that have been discovered. As we move back upstairs, we can see that the monumental structures, the ritual structures for the Zapotec kingdom are very large, very, very wide. They have very wide stairways lined by big balustrades on the sides. They aren't that many tiers typically, in contrast to Maya platform pyramids, but they make a very, very large stage for the participants of rituals to move up and away from the crowd and then enter buildings that were on the top of all of these, which are no longer roofed. Tourists used to be allowed to climb on these, not so much anymore. These line the both sides of the plaza and are in very specific alignments that relate to an activity that allowed ancient people to have observatories without actually glass or telescopes, that sort of thing. And that is to line up a building in the center of an area with fixed position items on the horizon, and then use two of those fixed points to look for days or times during the calendar year when a constellation, the sun, the moon, so forth, sets, go ups or down directly over a doorway, window, corner of a building, and align with perhaps a peak on the horizon. The most famous of these is the observatory here in the center of the city, and that particular observatory, one of the most unusually shaped in Mesoamerica. It is shaped like an arrowhead, and we know they made observations through one of the doorways towards other buildings and then out towards the horizon as well. The surface of the building is covered also with these flat sculptures that depict captives that have been sacrificed. So it's a very, very notable item for study, and probably still not done studying everything about it. Now, most of these low relief sculptures that depict captives are along in a gallery right close towards the observatory structure there. It has a lettered name in the literature, but we don't need to get that fussy with it. These flat sculptures are known as the danzantes. That's a really old name from earlier in the 20th century. They are not dancers. They are clearly sacrificed bio-male individuals. They are all clearly limp, deceased. Many show that their intestines have been pulled out, flowing blood through the abdomen and around the groin. Some clearly seem to be castrated. And quite a few of them are linked with small text that probably indicates locations. These are there early and then added to over a long period of centuries here at this particular city. And the experts agree that they document the dominance and consolidation of all of the villages and other towns in the valley area underneath centralized rule here at Monte Alban. Last couple items in our slideshow here are a look at another type of structure that we see from the Classic period and later. This is called a skull rack, or sometimes in the late Classic called sompantli. These were places where decapitated heads were mounted in public places and allowed to decompose slowly over time. This is a very fancy drawing, but I like this one. We know these existed, we know they carried the skulls, and we know they were prominently placed in public.